In the tavern. Maginot's fair and pretty face looked a little rosy at this time. Well, Maginot opened her mouth, wanting to say something. But I found that I couldn't say any words at all. She wanted to say no. Because, for Windmill Village. She has been here since she was a child. For her, this is her hometown. As for her hometown, she actually doesn't want to leave. But yearning for the sea. Maginot also admired it very much. She doesn't know why, but she also wants to sail on the sea. Experience the customs on each island. This is a very special situation. This is the thought hidden in the deepest part of Maginot's heart. Just this idea made Maginot feel a little scared. Because this idea is obviously a bit radical. But at this time, Rojas said to Maginot, "Don't you want to try to brew the specialties of each island into pure wine in your own way?" Then Rojas said, "You can rest assured that as long as you follow me out to sea, I can protect your safety in the name of White Pigeon Roja." After hearing Roja's words, Maginot felt that his heart was beating faster than ever before. Maginot clutched her chest. "Keep your head down." His face was rosy. She looks like a shy girl. However, Maginot herself is indeed a girl. As a young girl who was born solo. Invited by the handsome Roya. The most important thing is the gentle smile hanging on the corner of Baijelioya's mouth. Let Maginot only feel it in his heart. It can be said that it is constantly rippling. This feeling. It's like countless deer, colliding in my heart. "Well, okay, I promise you, but I need to tidy up." "Okay, no problem. We can also put these barrels directly on the warship, and then put them on my warship after returning to Marinafando. No problem, right?" Hearing Roja's words, Maginot nodded and said to Roja, "No problem." In response, Roja nodded. Immediately, phantoms appeared one after another. Carrying the wine barrel, he walked towards the warship. At this time, Roja suddenly felt it. As Zero's phantom, something seemed to have happened. Immediately, without any hesitation. Just past the phantom transformation immediately. Transformed the body into Zero. East China Sea. An unknown island. This small island is quite developed. There is also a market up there. Roja, the leader of the morning and evening birds, is shopping with Krina. They sailed all the way from the Great Channel to the Four Seas. All the pirates she encountered were beheaded by Kuina. Along the way, Kuina's talent continues to show. Coupled with Roja's medical skills, Kuina will not be left with any hidden injuries. Therefore, Kuina's swordsmanship level can be said to have improved crazily. The speed of improvement is also very terrifying. In these few short months, Kuina has been promoted to the intermediate level of Supreme Swordsman. That's right, it's the intermediate level Supreme Swordsman. Momosaji has already reached the same level as Momosaji, who has been immersed in the sword. This also surprised Roja. But after thinking that Kuina was a person who died once, she calmed down a lot. Because he died once before. Therefore, Kuina also comprehended something that was impossible for others to comprehend: Death Sword Chi. This makes Kuina go faster than others in the way of Kendo. Roya and Kuina came to a restaurant. It's said to be a restaurant, but it's actually just a small restaurant. The two people came to the restaurant. Just when the two of them sat down, someone walked in outside. Zoro had short green hair on his head and a dark green scarf tied on his left arm. He wears 3 drop-shaped gold earrings on his left ear, a white t-shirt on his upper body, a green belly band around his waist, dark green trousers, and black boots. A man with 3 swords hanging from his waist walked in. The moment this man walked in from outside, Kuina's eyes fell on this person. Roja obviously noticed Kuina's gaze. Following Kuina's gaze, Roja also looked at this man. The eyes of the two people were very obscure. This man was not noticed at all. The corners of Roja's mouth turned up slightly. He said to Kuina in front of him, "Zoro? That's your name, right?" Kuina nodded. The two men were wearing cloaks and looked very gloomy. Then Kuina added, "I didn't expect that I would meet him here." "Want to say hello?" Roja said evilly. In fact, he was just curious. When the person whom I thought was dead stood in front of me again. What kind of expression will he show? However, in response to Roha's words, Kuina shook her head. Forget it, he is too weak now. Then you don't want your sword anymore? Compared to the sword that has been touched by other men, I prefer the death that master gave me. After saying this, Kuina suddenly thought of it. My thoughts at the time of death. At that time, she only felt that her consciousness was darker than ever before. This feeling gives people a cruel despair. Obviously, I want to reach the peak of swordsmanship and want to work hard. But he was stopped in his tracks because of death. Therefore, she was dissatisfied and wanted to open her eyes again. Want to stand up again. But contrary to expectations, she completely fell into a permanent sleep. If it weren't for Roha's appearance, I don't think she will ever see the light of day again. As for why Roha was able to save himself, Kuina doesn't want to go into details. He just smiled and said to Roha, As I said before, I am willing to be the sharpest sword in your hands, master. If anyone is blind and dares to come and stir up trouble, then I will let them know how powerful it is. Just when Kuina's voice fell, there was some commotion in the distance. Where's the green algae head? Where's the green algae head? Here, we found the green algae head. Surround him immediately. I must avenge the vice-captain. Yes, we must avenge the vice-captain. The sounds of commotion gradually approached. I saw countless guys who didn't look like good people surrounding Zoro, who had just entered the restaurant. Looking at these people in front of him, Zoro put his hand on the hilt of his sword. Zoro looked at the people in front of him with calm eyes. A smile appeared on his lips. Didn't you just give your vice-captain to Marine? Are you so angry? Zoro looked at the pirates in front of him as if they didn't exist at all, and took them to heart. As a bounty hunter, killing pirates is just a way to make money. After watching them gradually surround him, Zoro glanced at him, looking very disdainful. At this time, the pirate captain looked at the people in the restaurant and said to them, Everyone who is eating here, get out of here. If we accidentally kill you, don't blame us. As the pirate finished speaking, everyone quickly stood up from their seats. He rushed outside like crazy. Only the owner of the restaurant had cold sweat on his forehead. That heart can be said to be constantly sinking. Well, can you go out and fight? Our place is just a small place, there is no way we can withstand your fight. I saw the owner of this restaurant begging for mercy in front of me. The pirate captain only felt that his vanity was greatly satisfied. But satisfaction is satisfaction. But the pirate captain said to the boss, Do you think it's possible? I told you that if you stay here, you will die. As the pirate captain's words fell, I saw that a large amount of ink suddenly emerged from the pirate captain's body. Black ink brings fear to people. The boss immediately knelt on the ground, and his entire face was covered in ink. Zoro's pupils shrank suddenly when he saw this, although he didn't know why the person in front of him turned into ink. However, Zoro still did not hesitate and immediately drew his blade. Cut off the ink. The ink suddenly spilled on the floor. The ground was stained black. Although the boss was saved from the ink package. However, the pirate captain's arms suddenly grew. It looked as if he had not been harmed in any way. Cough, cough, cough. The boss put his hands on his throat. For the first time, he felt how wonderful it was to be able to breathe. Cough, 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 cough. Coughed a few more times. The boss, holding on to his body, ran outside. He didn't intend to stay here either. As long as you can survive. At this time, in the restaurant, only Zoro, Roya, and Kuina are left. Roha and Kuina are naturally not afraid of these people. With the idea of watching the excitement, I just sat in my seat and watched the farce in front of me. But that pirate captain didn't think so. He obviously also saw Roha and Kuina. However, I didn't take it to heart. Instead, he smiled at everyone and said, I am a person cursed by the sea. I can turn my body into ink. No attack can cause any harm to me. Because I am the strongest in the sea. Big presence. The pirate captain opened his hands and laughed wildly at everyone. At this time, Zoro's knowledge was not as experienced as it would be later. In fact, this was the first time he heard that such people existed. Roha and Kuina looked at each other. Then Roha said softly, I didn't expect that in a remote place like Donghai, there would be Logia's devil fruit. It's just that the fruit is mainly about looking at people. Kuina added, Yes, but in the East China Sea, it should be enough, as long as it's not too rampant. When Kuina said this, the corners of her mouth raised slightly, and she didn't know what she was thinking of. The pirate captain looked at Zoro in front of him and said ferociously to Zoro, Let me deal with you first, and then kill the two people who are watching the fun. I just gave you a way out, don't you cherish it? Don't blame me! As he spoke, the ink on the pirate captain's body began to surge. Then his hands suddenly reached forward. In an instant, it was like a fountain, rushing towards Zoro. Zoro was startled and quickly ducked to the side. The ink happened to hit his subordinate, knocking him directly to the ground. But the pirate captain didn't take it to heart at all. Still moving towards Zoro, he continued to send out ink blasts. Zoro keeps dodging you, trying to find the pirate captain's weakness. But as time goes by, the pirate captain's own men were all knocked down by the pirate captain himself. But it still didn't touch Zoro's sleeve. But at this time, Zoro had no place to hide. What exactly is going on? Why is this person in front of me able to possess such power? Most importantly, he seems to be immune to his own slashes. This is something Zoro never expected. Kaka, let me see where you can escape. Let me use my ink to make it impossible for you to breathe. The pirate captain laughed wildly, and then the ink on his body continued to surge. Roll up towards Zoro. He wants to swallow Zoro into his body. Then let Zoro suffocate to death. Zoro's eyes were calm. I want to find a better way to defeat this person in front of me. However, no matter how he slashes, they all cut off the flow of water and make it flow again. There is no way to hurt the pirate captain. This made Zoro unable to help but gritted his teeth. I can't die yet, but I want to carry Kuina's wish and reach the highest peak of the sword. If I get knocked down here, wouldn't I let her down? Zoro gritted his teeth and tried to struggle out. But the ability of the Logia fruit, in this place of the East China Sea, it's really invincible. Because there is simply no one who can understand the domineering power of armed color. They may not even be able to hear what armed color hockey is. The ink gradually climbs. Gradually, Zoro's body was completely surrounded. The air is cut off from Zoro. The strong feeling of suffocation made Zoro feel that his life was passing quickly. All that could be heard was the pirate captain's wild laughter, echoing in the restaurant. The ink on his body became more and more turbulent. They have even started to rush towards Roha and Kuina. Seeing this scene in front of him, Roha glanced at the corner of his mouth. There was no time for Roha to make any move. Kuina pulled out the death belt from her waist. The Supreme Swordsman's mid-level draw and slash. A solid flying light flashed across the sky, rushing towards the pirate captain. Because of the armed domination, the pirate captain's laughter stopped abruptly. The ink suddenly dispersed. The corpse of the pirate captain was revealed, as well as Zoro, who was about to lose his strength. Cough, cough, cough. Zoro was half kneeling on the ground, breathing in the fresh air. At this time, his face, body, and clothes all turned the color of ink. He looked extremely embarrassed. As for Captain Ink's death, the other pirates next to him were completely stunned. Because they didn't expect that the invincible Captain Ink would be defeated by just one blow. This is simply beyond their imagination. How is this possible? Captain Ink was defeated with just one blow. Captain Ink is invincible. How could he die like this? This is absolutely impossible. I heard those crew members who were accidentally injured by Captain Ink before. Kuina's eyes hidden under the cloak wanted to roll her eyes. It's just a Logia fruit. It obviously has the form of water, but it relies on suffocating people to death. It's really terrible. After a pause, Kuina said to everyone, If you want to follow your captain, then I will send you down. As Kuina finished speaking, death passed through an afterimage in the sky. After images flashed in the air. Sword energy and air appeared out of thin air. It turned into dozens of sword energy and roared towards the other pirates. In just the blink of an eye, the heads of those people were chopped off by Kuina. The strong death sword energy made Zoro, who was half kneeling on the ground, tremble all over. He has never felt such a terrifying and cold sword energy. This sword energy made his heart palpitate like never before. In fact, Zoro seemed to see Shinigami and smile at him. Even though he knew that the Shinigami in front of him was just a fake. But there was no way to control the trembling in his heart. After Kuina has dealt with these pirates. Without even looking at Zoro, who was half kneeling on the ground, he walked directly in the direction of Roha. Death put the sword back into its scabbard. Then he sat next to Roha. Roha also poured a pot of sake for Kuina. It seems like we won't be able to finish this meal. Even the boss has escaped. Sorry, master, if a certain cockroach hadn't come in, I think this wouldn't have happened. Kuina's voice floated in this small restaurant. Forget it, let's go. I saw a fruit seller in front of me. I'll buy you some fruit to eat. Thank you, master. No matter what I'm thankful for, it's all my family. Roha put his hand on Kuina's hair and stroked it lovingly. Then, he and Kuina walked outside. But at this time, Zoro had almost calmed down. He got up from the ground and said to Roha and Kuina in a hoarse voice. Wait a minute, please wait a minute. Roha narrowed his eyes slightly, glanced at Kuina, and then said to Zoro, Oh, what else do you have to do? Roha looked at Zoro in front of him, and said to Zoro in a slightly joking tone. Zoro said to Roha, Just now, how did you do that just now? Although Zoro's body is still a little uncomfortable now. But his unremitting pursuit of swordsmanship still made Zoro hold on to his spirit and asked Roha and Kuina. Roha did not answer, but motioned to Kuina. Kuina looked at Zoro with a flash of disdain in her eyes. You are too weak now. When you become stronger, you will naturally know, Kuina said to Zoro. Then, he took Roha's arm and walked away. She didn't want to talk to Zoro. Because they are completely from two worlds. To put it bluntly, Kuina doesn't take Zoro seriously now. In her eyes, Zoro is just a slightly more powerful soldier at best. However, before taking a few steps, Zoro's voice came again. Your voice sounds very similar to someone I know. Can you let me see your face? Zoro seemed to be lost in memories. I have always targeted her and worked hard, hoping that one day I could truly defeat her. But I never thought that person. He sighed and said, I just didn't expect that something like that would happen one day, but it doesn't matter. I will take her dream and work hard together. One day, I will become the world's greatest swordsman. Hearing Zoro's words, Kuina felt that Zoro was really looking at the sky from a well. Kuina looked at Roha and said to Roha, Master, can you let me solve it by myself? Okay, you can do whatever you want. Roha shrugged, as if he didn't put Zoro in his eyes at all. After Kuina got Roha's approval. Then he turned around and looked at Zoro in front of him. Then he took off his hood directly. For an instant, Zoro was stunned. He stared at Kuina in front of him, dumbfounded. His expression was full of shock. Even the heart seemed to have stopped at this moment. Kuina! It's really you! Are you actually not dead? Zoro took a step forward, as if he wanted to confirm. However, at this time, Kuina looked at Zoro with extremely disgusted eyes. Zoro, you don't need to understand this matter in depth. I just want to tell you that from now on, you will follow your young one road and I will cross my single plank bridge. Don't talk about my dreams anymore. Kuina added. That's your dream, not my dream. My dream now is just to be the sharpest sword in the hands of my master, so that any enemy who appears in front of my master will die under my sword. That's all. Kuina's cold words fell into Zoro's ears. These words were like exploding in Zoro's ears. Like a thunder, Zoro was stunned on the spot. Kuina, weren't you like this before? Did this person deceive you into becoming a sword in the hands of others? You will never become the world's greatest swordsman in your lifetime. the world's greatest swordsman, the world's greatest swordsman. It's really funny. In my eyes, the title of the world's greatest swordsman, no matter how precious it is, I won't take it seriously. The only one who can really put my eyes on me is my master. Zoro opened his mouth, wanting to say something. But he found that when the words came to his mouth, he had no way to say them. From now on, we will no longer know each other. After saying this, Kuina put on her hood again, walking in the direction of Roha. Looking at the direction Kuina left, Zoro shook his head and gritted his teeth, the veins on his forehead popping out. Immediately, a sword was thrust towards Roha. You must be the one who bewitched Kuina. Kuina, I will definitely let you see this person's true face. As Zoro's words fell, I saw Zoro pull out the word Wado emoji from his waist. A cold light shone in the streets. The simple blade with the word Wadoichi bloomed with a cold and fierce force in Zoro's hands. It's just that this evil force is in Kuina's eyes. Just like a kitten. There is no deterrent at all. Cut it off with one knife. A small sword wind rushed towards Roha. Yes. It's just the sword wind. Even the sword energy cannot be formed. Kuina noticed Zoro's movements the moment he drew his sword. Not to mention Roha, a person with the peak of domineering power. As early as 5 minutes ago, Roha saw Zoro's movements. In response, Kuina just snapped her fingers lightly. In an instant, a sword energy appeared in the air out of thin air, rushing towards Zoro. The sword wind struck by Zoro had no power to fight back at all. In the blink of an eye, he was swallowed up by the sword energy. Then, at an even faster speed, he arrived in front of Zoro. Zoro didn't even have a chance to react. He was directly struck on the chest by the sword energy. You are too weak now, so weak that I have no interest in killing you. Kuina's words sounded like naked humiliation. It just drifted to Zoro's ears. Zoro only thinks that Kuina is like a big mountain. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get over it. Standing in front of Kuina, blood spurted from his chest. In the blink of an eye, his clothes were dyed red. The pain kept rising, stimulating and numbing the brain. Zoro slowly fell backwards. The unwillingness in his eyes continued to flow through them. He whispered softly, "The 2002nd battle failed." At this time, Roha and Kuina had already left the deserted street. Zoro's life and death seemed to have nothing to do with them. But based on Xiaoqiang's theory in the original work, Roha felt that Zoro would not die like this. Dark clouds gradually enveloped the sky over the island. Light rain fell from the sky. Pitter-patter. The figures of Roya and Kuina disappeared from the island, as if they had never been there. At this time, Luoya said to Kuina, "I didn't expect that, Kuina. You have such a bad intention." Hearing Roha's words, Kuina's face showed a little panic. "Master, do you know what I think?" "Of course, you are my apprentice. How can I not know that little Jojo in your heart?" Hearing Roha's words, Kuina then nodded seriously. "I just want to see Zoro's potential and how strong it is. If possible, I want him to become Ace's subordinate." Hearing Kuina's words, Roha chuckled and said, "Who knows what the future holds?" As Roha's words fell, Kuina said to Roha, "But in the future I will become the master, the sharpest sword in your hand, and I will cut through the thorns for you, master. I am already very happy that you have such a heart," Roha said, stroking Kuina's hair again. And Kuina also showed a very happy smile. After buying fruits, the two people came to Noah's Ark, which was as huge as an island. Roha then said to the ship's spirit of Noah's Ark, "Just sail as you like. Enemies don't matter. In the pursuit of swordsmanship, continuous training is the most important." After a day or two of sailing, Roya and Kuina saw a pirate ship with a heart-shaped skull approaching them. The hull is pink and looks very girly. "Kuina, is there any information about this ship on the reward poster?" Roha leaned on the edge of the boat and said to Kuina. In Kuina's hand she held Donghai's bounty and kept looking at it. "Master, I found it. The captain of the ship in front of me is a girl. Her name seems to be Arita." Hearing Kuina's words, Roha's eyes suddenly flashed with light. Oh, really, if that's the case, then let's move towards the ship. Roha's words were spoken to the ship elves of Noah's Ark. Wind chimes are ringing. The speed of Noah's Ark suddenly increased a lot. On board, Arita was fast asleep. I was suddenly disturbed by the noise. All I could see was Alita's face full of flesh. It looks very disgusting. He sat up from the bed. Arita shouted loudly. Do you want to die? How dare you wake up the most beautiful woman on the sea? I'm sorry, but there is a very large ship rushing towards us in the distance. If we don't turn around, we will probably be crushed by that ship. Hearing the words of the crew, Arita felt very disdainful. What kind of ship? Can't you just blow it up for me? Arita's voice echoed on the ship. Then he walked out of the cabin. It didn't matter if she walked out. As soon as she walked out, Arita felt that her soul was about to be scared out of her body. What is this? You call this a boat? This size is completely equivalent to an island. Without any hesitation, Arita immediately ordered, change your direction immediately and run away. The faster you run away, the better. After hearing Alita's words, everyone took action. Arita put the mace on her shoulder. Kirby, move more swiftly. Believe it or not, I will throw you right off the boat. Yes, I will be faster, Ms. Arita. After hearing Kirby's words, the tension in Arita's heart immediately dissipated a lot. Arita, who was already somewhat calm, said to the many crew members, immediately throw away all the drinks in the warehouse, then start loading cannonballs, reduce the weight of the ship as much as possible, and then sail faster, escape at speed. Do you understand? Understood, Captain Arita. I understand, Ms. Arita. After KB answered this sentence, he took the lead and ran towards the warehouse. He had just salvaged a wine barrel. Haven't opened it yet to take a look, but for now anyway. It would be better to throw them out of the warehouse. However, just when KB stood in front of the barrel, a figure wearing a straw hat and red clothes suddenly jumped out of the barrel. At the same time, he shouted loudly, Sleep so good. Luffy suddenly appeared, startling KB. He didn't expect that there was actually a person in the wine barrel. Who are you? Luffy looked at KB cutely and asked KB. Hearing Luffy's words, KB subconsciously complained, Who are you? After saying that, KB took out a small knife from somewhere. Holding the hilt of the knife with trembling hands, he said to Luffy, Are you from that ship? Did they send you here? You must tell me the truth. If you don't tell me the truth, believe me or not, I will tell Ms. Arita. When Luffy heard KB's words, he scratched his head subconsciously, and then said to KB, Who is Ms. Arita? When KB heard Luffy's words, he thought of Ms. Arita's usual teachings and said, Ms. Arita, she is the most beautiful person in the sea. Hearing KB's words, Luffy nodded blankly and then said, Then what? By the way, I'm hungry, is there anything to eat? Luffy rubbed his belly with a pitiful expression on his face. KB looked at Luffy in front of him and expressed that he was completely frightened. On the sea, Arita asked her men to continuously fire cannonballs towards Noah's Ark. Want to slow down Noah's Ark? Not to mention whether this can destroy the defense of Noah's Ark. But even if you want to reduce the speed, it is impossible. In addition, Roha will never let the cannonball fall on Noah's Ark. Therefore, Roha said to Kuina, I'll leave these shells to you. Hear Roha's order. Kuina immediately said, Yes, I know, master. Look at the cannonballs arcing through the air. Kuina just waved her hand casually. It was countless sword energy that accurately resisted the attack of the cannonballs. Shells exploded in the air. Because it was daytime, there was nothing to see at all. Just gunpowder smoke filling the air. Then the sword energy dissipated in the air. The strong control shows that Kuina is one step closer in the way of Kendo. Seeing that Noah's Ark was about to crush Arita's ship, Roha said to the ship's spirit of Noah's Ark, Okay, something seems to have happened on that ship. Roha looked at the ship in front of him with great interest. Faintly, he had an intuition in his heart. After Arita saw it, the ship behind her obviously reduced its speed, My heart suddenly became ecstatic. If she thought correctly, they really didn't dare to continue chasing her. Ha ha ha, should I say that I am worthy of being the most beautiful woman in the world? When others see it, they will be very excited. Just when Alita thought this in her heart. In the cabin, chaotic sounds suddenly appeared. Immediately afterwards, KB ran out in a very embarrassed state. Then Luffy's figure came into view. Roha looked at Luffy's figure and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. He did not expect that as a white dove, he would first meet Sanji. Then came the identity of Zero and met Zoro. I didn't expect that I could see Luffy at this time. Did he witness the future encounters of the Straw Hat Pirates? Only this time he exists. He didn't believe it and had his own interference. The Straw Hats can still meet like in the original novel. The first is the absence of Nami and Robin. They have joined their own camp. I will never join the Straw Hat camp again. He became more and more curious about what would happen in the near future. Luffy came out of the cabin at this time, just like his own ship. The whole person was shocked, looking at Noah's Ark in front of him. He said in shock, "Oh, this ship is really big. It would be great if I could also own a ship like this." However, Luffy's appearance shocked everyone. At this time, because the distance between the ship and Noah's Ark was gradually lengthening. So Arita also vented her vigilance. He immediately said to KB, "Kebe, didn't you go throw the barrel? How come there is an extra one?" KB was trembling all over his body. He quickly explained, "Ms. Arita, please listen to my explanation. This man jumped out of the barrel. I don't know why he is in it." "Yeah." Arita looked at KB coldly. She felt that KB would never dare to deceive her. So I didn't delve into it. Instead, he said to the crew around him, "Since he came in by himself, let's teach him how to write the word death. You guys, come on. Catch him." Following Alita's order, everyone surrounded Luffy. Roha was not in any hurry, and just sat on the edge of Noah's Ark with Kuina, watching the big show in front of him. I saw the pirates around, jumping towards Luffy. The blade in his hand glowed with a cold light, drawing an arc in the air. It was about to hit Luffy. I saw Luffy's mouth grinning. He showed his signature smile and said, "Hey." Then the arm stretched back, and then suddenly thrust forward. Under the shocked gaze of everyone, the arm continued to extend, and then hung on the mast. Then, the arms began to shrink, driving Luffy's body to avoid the pirates' attack. Immediately afterwards, Luffy stretched out his arm again, like a whip, and whipped towards the pirates. The speed is pretty good. At least not many of these pirates can react. Ah! What kind of monster is this? It's so scary, like a freak. These pirates kept screaming in surprise there. Arita was the only one there watching Luffy. Looking at Luffy's exhibition of Kamui, he said to Luffy, "Are you a devil fruit user?" Hearing Arita's words, Luffy immediately revealed his iconic big white fang and said to Arita, "Oh, do you also know about devil fruit?" "I am a rubber fruit user." Luffy's words reached Arita's ears. Arita immediately turned around and glanced at her back. "Then Noah's Ark is still very far away from me. If nothing else, he should be able to escape from Noah's Ark's pursuit. Then, let's deal with Luffy in front of us first." Thinking of this, Arita walked towards Luffy with a huge mace in her hand. "Boy, I've seen one or two devil fruit users, but you can never scare me." On board, Arita discovered that the pirates around her had no choice at all. Subdue Luffy. So, she personally carried the mace and walked towards Luffy. Luffy stretched out his hand and pressed his straw hat. He said to Arita, "You are right, I am the rubber man who ate the rubber fruit." As he said this, Luffy was very naughty and pulled his cheek. He looks like an idiot. It makes people dumbfounded. Roha was also in the distance, looking at Luffy in front of him with interest. Thinking that this was the protagonist in the original work, Luoya felt dumbfounded. Because so far, he hasn't found any bright spots in Luffy. In other words, Luffy is just too stubborn. Of course, it may also be because of eating rubber fruits. It is possible to turn your brain into rubber. When Arita heard Luffy's words, her face full of anger trembled. I don't care who you are anyway, just go to hell. With that said, Arita raised the mace in her hand without any politeness. Behind her now, there is Noah's Ark chasing her. If Luffy is not dealt with quickly, the speed will inevitably be affected. While the guy on the boat hadn't made any moves yet. She wants to get rid of Luffy as quickly as possible. Luffy looked at Alita and rushed towards him. He showed a smile and said to Alita or to himself, I don't want to die because I am a pirate and I want to be a one-piece man. When Luffy said these words, his hands were raised high. He looks very confident. It's just you, stop being funny. As Arita finished speaking, the mace drew an arc under her control and hit Luffy. The fangs on the mace are like inverted nails, and they look like they are glowing with a cold light. At this time, Luffy showed his white teeth. His skills are not weak at all, and his whole body bends backwards in an incredible arc. Kanken dodged Arita's attack. Arita's mace suddenly hit the edge of the boat next to her. A huge hole suddenly opened in the side of the boat. At the same time, Luffy said to Arita, Although I am alone now, I will definitely find my companions in the future, and I will sail on this sea with them. As Luffy's words fell, Kabi, who was standing by the side, finally couldn't stand it anymore. He was now completely frightened. He didn't expect that the man in front of him would dare to say the words of wanting to become one piece in front of so many people. This is simply incredible. Doesn't this person know that the person in front of him is the most powerful person in this sea? Luffy's actions completely shocked Kirby. It was the first time that he felt such a close connection with a person so full of dreams. Suddenly, Kabi's heart trembled. For some reason, when he looked at Luffy's back, his own fire ignited in his heart. I saw Kabi step forward. Came to Luffy's side. Kirby's movements attracted the attention of Luffy and Arita. Kirby, what do you want to do? Arita said coldly to Kabi. The pressure on his body surged towards Kabi. For a moment, Kabi didn't even dare to make any move. However, he thought of Luffy, when he shouted out his dream just now. He moved. I saw Kabi imitating Luffy's appearance, with his legs as wide as his shoulders. He raised his hands high and shouted to Alita. I don't want to be a pirate, and I don't want to be squeezed every day by the ugliest old woman in the sea. Arita originally did not put Kabi in her heart. But when she heard Kirby, she shouted that she was an old woman. Still the ugliest old woman. How could Arita endure this? You. What did you say? I'll give you another chance. Tell me loudly who I am. Arita's furious voice echoed across the sea. Even Roja and Kuina, who were sitting on the edge of the boat watching the show, could hear it clearly. Kuina was behind, stretching out her white catkins and gently squeezing Roja's shoulders. He asked Roja, Master, who do you think can win the battle between them? Arita, after all, the overall quality of pirates on the sea is constantly rising. No matter in every aspect, Arita, who has been at sea for many years, is obviously better than those two people, but just without any surprises. What's the meaning? Kuina felt like she didn't understand. Could there be any other surprises? Anyway, just keep reading. In fact, the meaning of Roya's words is still unclear. As the protagonist in the original work, Luffy's so-called protagonist aura is really abnormal. At this time, under Arita's roar, Kabi was already frightened, his legs were shaking constantly, and he looked like a chicken about to be slaughtered. Hey, just say what you want to say. In this sea, the most important thing is to be yourself. Aren't pirates the freest people? If even what you want to say has to be controlled, then why go to sea? After hearing Luffy's words, Kabi felt that his heart felt a little calmer. Yes, you are right, you are the ugliest old woman in this sea. As Kabi's words fell, he just felt that his heart felt much relieved. However, Kabi hadn't completely relaxed yet. Arita, with red eyes, rushed towards Luffy and Kabi quickly. Arita's fat figure was constantly vibrating. The mace raised high was also filled with powerful violence at this time. Luffy's heart suddenly sank when he saw this scene in front of him. This is my first battle at sea, and I will never lose. As Luffy's words fell, Luffy held his other hand with one hand. And this hand is also constantly turning. He muttered the words, "Rubber, rubber pistol." I saw Luffy using the reaction force when the rubber expanded and contracted to attack Arita. Bang! Luffy's arm hit Arita hard. However, the fat on Arita's body was swaying back and forth. Apart from making Alita's speed slightly slower, it has no effect at all. Luffy saw this scene in front of him and subconsciously said, "How is this possible?" On board, a tense atmosphere gradually filled the air. Most of the attack power of Luffy's fist was offset by Arita's fat body. Although this also made Arita take a deep breath subconsciously. But it didn't cause much damage. The mace was smashed downward. Boom! A small hole was made on the deck by Arita's mace. Luffy's hand was almost hit by the mace. There are sharp spikes on the mace. Although Luffy was able to withstand attacks from blunt weapons, Luffy, who was not armed with haki, could not resist sharp weapons at all. A trace of blood appeared on Luffy's arm. Blood dripped down his arm and onto the deck. Tick-tock. The sound of blood dripping reached KB's ears. Let KB's face instantly become extremely pale. KB pointed at Luffy's arm and said to Luffy, "You're injured. Hold head high." Luffy nodded, his eyes sinking slightly. He obviously didn't expect that his first battle at sea would be so difficult. "Hey boy, no matter who you are, you will die under my mace." Waving the mace, Arita rushed towards Luffy again. Ho. The mace was in Arita's hand, waving it constantly. Under Arita's attack, Luffy also struggled to find opportunities. He launched his own attack towards Alita. It's just that Alita's layer of fat has really good cushioning properties. Although, Luffy also fought back Arita from time to time. Arita even spit out blood. However, Luffy's situation at this time was even more grim. At this time, his body was covered with blood stains and nail wounds. Except for the red hat on his head, nothing else is complete. Arita smiled miserably and walked towards Luffy. "Boy, your strength is quite good. You were able to beat me to this point. However, you have no future. Please die for me now." When KB saw the scene in front of him, he subconsciously blurted out, "Go back quickly. If you don't back away, you will die." Hearing KB's words, Luffy wanted to continue to control his body. But he found that his body was completely unable to move. It's like wearing thousands of shackles. Even if Luffy takes one more step, it will be very difficult. Is it really going to end? I'm so unwilling to accept it. It's obvious that I have just set out to sea. I haven't met my brother Ace yet, nor have I completed the straw hat oath that the red hare made with myself, nor have I become one piece and gone to the last island. I'm so unwilling. But it's all over. Luffy looked at the blue sky and wanted to clench his fists, but at this time, he didn't have any extra strength. But at this moment, KB suddenly came to Luffy. He opened his arms to protect Luffy. Looking at Arita, the mace was about to be smashed down. KB closed his eyes tightly and shouted loudly, "This time, it is my own action." This is the first time that KB has used his own will to step out with his legs. Although he may be greeted by death. But this time, KB expressed that he had no regrets. Luffy's pupils shrank suddenly. "Quick, get out of the way." Ahem. Because the physical injuries were too serious. So much so that Luffy now only needs to raise his voice a little louder. You will feel that there is a fire burning in your chest. Then immediately after, blood will be vomited out directly. At this moment, Roha's figure appeared in front of KB. "That's enough. You guys are so boring. I can't bear to see scenes of love between children." I saw Roha stretching out his palm. He easily caught Arita's mace. No abilities are even used. Just relying on his own physical strength. Use your fingers. The mace in Arita's hand suddenly looked like a balloon. It was slowly flattened by Luoya, as if it were made from dough. Arita's eyelids jumped. Subconsciously blurted out, "How is this possible? How is this impossible?" The corners of Roha's mouth raised slightly, But he didn't give Arita a chance to be shocked. He grabbed the mace directly. He crushed it into an iron ball and threw it into the sea. At the same time, with a palm, Arita was directly shot into the ocean. Eliana's terrifying and superb skills. Arita was like an oversized bomb, flying straight away, falling directly towards the sea at a very fast speed. You know, at this speed, even the sea will become like hard ground. There was no possibility of survival at all. Roya's power directly shocked Luffy and Kaby. One of them stood on the spot and the other lay on the ground, but they were all stunned, looking at Roja in front of them. They even thought that they seemed to be hallucinating. Okay, so strong, Luffy murmured softly, only thinking about the man in the cloak in front of him. It's just too powerful. The other pirates around were completely frightened when they saw this scene in front of them. I want to escape directly, but there is no way to escape. If they jump off the ship now, they will surely sink directly to the bottom of the sea with their physical strength. Just when they were hesitating, Roja had already made their choice for them. Kuina. Yes, master. Kuina has been with Roja for a while. Naturally, I know what Roja's words mean. Kuina turned around and looked at the pirates. Stretch out your delicate hands. The white fingertips are crystal clear and white with red nails. The sword is gestating. With a slight raise of his hand, countless sword energy spurted out in an instant. The sword is awe-inspiring. In the blink of an eye, the ship seemed to have turned into purgatory. It gives people an infinite fear in their hearts. Then, Kuina slowly set her eyes on Kaby. If she remembered correctly, Kaby seemed to be a member of Arita's ship. When Kuina's eyes turned to Kaby, Kaby was frightened and knelt on the ground. Kaby seemed to see a person coming out of hell. That rich aura of death has already inadvertently entangled Kaby. Okay, just keep this person. After Roja said this, he squatted down. Looking at Luffy in front of him, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, and he said to Luffy, "What do you think of this battle?" Roja's words echoed in Luffy's ears. Luffy knew that he was safe for the time being. I felt relieved immediately. Immediately afterwards, his stomach rang. Golyalu. Then I heard Luffy say, "I'm so hungry, do you have anything to eat?" Ha 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 ha, it's you who deserves to be said. Uncle, do you know me? Hearing Luffy act so naturally, he called himself Uncle. Roja was speechless. But he didn't say anything, he just said, "You will know this later." The spell ability is activated. Roja took Luffy and Kaby directly to Noah's Ark. Luffy felt his body and suddenly felt light. The whole person became a little more excited. Oh ho ho, I actually flew up, it's so awesome. Put Luffy on the deck. Then Roja used his peak medical skills to randomly mix the medicinal materials. Under the blessing of Ryujin Jakka's flame, it was roasted into medicinal powder. Then Roja sprinkled it directly on Luffy's body. In an instant, Luffy felt as if his body was being burned. But the body became more and more relaxed. About half an hour later, Luffy slowly climbed up from the deck. He patted his whole body and felt not only no pain at all. It's even very comfortable. Luffy just felt shocked. He has never seen this kind of magical powder. If he could have this kind of powder, wouldn't he be able to keep fighting? As if he knew what Luffy was thinking. Roja directly interrupted his fantasy. Don't think about these medicinal powders. This kind of medicinal powder is relatively easy to use the first time you use it. The more you use it, the worse the effect will be. Luffy nodded thoughtfully after hearing Roja's words. Then he said to Roja, "Then, do you want to be my companion?" As Luffy's words fell, the hostility in Kuina's body immediately pressed towards Luffy. The aura that vaguely resembled Conqueror's domineering force was all pressing down on Luffy at this moment. Luffy took in a breath subconsciously. As for Kaby next to him, he fainted from fright. Luffy only felt that his head was a little dizzy. However, the belief in his heart made him endure it. Roja waved his hand slightly, and Kuina obeyed and took back the aura on her body. At this time, Roja looked at Luffy with his eyes hidden under his cloak. He said to Luffy, "Do you know what the words you just said mean?" "What's the meaning?" Luffy subconsciously said to Roja. Roja snorted coldly. You will know in the future. Next, I will find an island and send you down. The rest is up to you. Roja added, By the way, all the rooms inside have their own names. You can stay in the sailor's room today. I will send you food later. With that said, Roja and Kuina walked towards their rooms. Only Luffy and KB, who had just woken up, were left standing stunned. Luffy complained, Uncle, really, he just left. How do we know where the sailor's room is? Luffy was complaining there, but the next second, the door of a room above Noah's Ark opened directly. Inside is the sailor's room. Wow! It's really magical. What's really magical here, Uncle, are things I've never seen before. Luffy walked in excitedly. Along with KB, he also followed Luffy and walked inside. This is obviously the work of the ship's spirits on Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark slowly changed direction and headed towards the nearest island. Huge ships, riding the wind and waves on the sea. Luoya asked Kuina to go to the sea to find some Poseidon species. After all, only the flesh and blood of the Poseidon type contains the most abundant blood. The way Kuina captures the Poseidon class is also very simple. Relying on the intermediate level of the Supreme Swordsman at this time, Kuina used one of the 12 skills of the Supreme Sharp Sword to slash the sea with all his strength. In an instant, the entire sea was split open by Kuina. The sea water is divided. The appearance inside was revealed. With keen senses, Kuina directly cut these Poseidon classes into 2 pieces. Then at this time, Roja used the power of the spell to float the severed Poseidons directly to the deck of Noah's Ark. Then used the flames of Ryujin Jakka to cook cooked food. The super tempting fragrance instantly attracted the attention of Luffy and KB. Luoya was not stingy and let them eat as much as they wanted. As Roja's words fell, it could be said that Luffy was really not polite at all. He just ate the meat and after a while, his body became as big as a balloon. Covering his stomach with both hands, he kept saying, I'm so full, so full. I haven't eaten so full for a long time. Uncle, you are a great person. Luffy gave Roja a thumbs up. In this regard, Luoya just said lightly, Really, but many people don't think so. Then Roja said again, By the way, it's getting late now, you should go to bed quickly. We will be able to reach the island about tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and I will put you down then. At night. Bright moonlight. Sprinkled from the sky over the endless sea. Sparkling look. It makes people feel relaxed and happy. A small boat, taking advantage of the night. Slowly approaching Noah's Ark. Then, using his tools and flexible skills, he climbed onto the deck of Noah's Ark. The ship's spirit on Noah's Ark. At this time, bursts of wind chimes sounded. Luoya's ears rang. Roja slowly opened his eyes. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then the figure slowly disappeared from the room. At this time, the figure was almost on the deck. She was a little out of breath, but she felt that she didn't have to work too hard. I didn't expect that I could encounter such a big fish in the East China Sea. I guess there should be countless treasures on it. When the time comes, I can just grab some and make a fortune. In addition, I have grown from a clown before. The sea charts I got from the pirates made me feel like I was going to get rich. The woman said secretly in her heart. However, she didn't find it behind her back. It is Roja who is floating in the air. At this time, he is surrounded by phantom fruits, creating phantoms. Karina works her way through the ropes, as well as her own skills. Finally climbed onto the deck of Noah's Ark. It was only when she stood on the deck of Noah's Ark that she truly realized it. The splendor and grandeur of this Noah's Ark. Oh my God, this is too rich. How much would it cost to build such a big ship? Karina murmured to herself and added, If Nami knew that such a ship would appear in the East China Sea, his eyes would definitely light up. Roya was floating just above Karina. With Karina's strength, there is no way to detect the presence of a person above her. Originally, Roja wanted to punish the man in front of him. Let her know that being a thief is a very bad behavior. However, after hearing Karina say Nami's name, Roja decided to observe her a little bit. At the same time, Roja was also thinking about Karina's identity. Karina tiptoed, walking towards the depths of Noah's Ark. Carefully explore everything on the ship. Then, she discovered a very strange place. That's it. There seems to be no one keeping watch on this ship. The so-called night vigil is actually the patrol of the crew at night. The purpose is to prevent various things from happening. However, Karina was not on the ship and found someone patrolling here. There was no sound except the sound of the sea and the breeze. It can be said that it is quiet and a bit scary. However, the ship in front of you may contain countless precious treasures. This made Karina feel as if she couldn't control herself. Just go in and take a look, take a walk around, and if you find anything useful, just take advantage of it. If you don't gain anything, just leave. Just a few moments. Karina made up her mind in her heart. The 2 feet fell on the deck like cat's claws without making any sound. Pad your feet and hold your waist. He looked very careful. After observing in front, Karina found the doorway into the cabin. Then he walked in quietly. Roja had already made an agreement with the ship elf in advance. No matter which room it is, just put her in it. Noah's Ark is really big. When she first walked into the cabin, Karina felt like she could fit a not-so-small boat into the aisle alone. There are various doors on both sides of the aisle. When she first arrived, she didn't know which one was the treasure room. She had no choice but to open the gate of opening one by one and observe carefully. Through years of experience, Karina feels that the location of the treasure room should be deep in the cabin. But the strong curiosity in her heart made her subconsciously push open the first door when she entered the cabin. The door was opened easily. Karina first listened to what was going on inside. After discovering that there was only a slight snoring sound, he slowly opened the cabin door. With the moonlight coming in from outside, Karina found 2 people lying on the bed, sleeping soundly. One of them put his straw hat on his face and lay on the bed in a large font. And the other one looks a little short. The whole person was curled up together on the bed. Apart from this, the other beds are completely empty. Roja used his floating ability to float his body in the air. Just so casually, looking at Karina in front of me. At this time, he had already remembered who the girl in front of him was. If nothing else, he should be Nami's rival when he was a child. The 2 of them are enemies and friends. However, this is the plot in the original work. Now, although Nami still likes money, she has not become a thief. How did you meet Nami? This made Roja very strange. Just when Roja was thinking, Karina slowly closed the door. I don't know why, but Karina feels a little bit creepy. Such a big ship, but only so few people. Thinking of this ship, it seems that the sails are not hoisted. So how does this work? Karina swallowed subconsciously. The slight chill after nightfall made Karina feel a little chilly in her heart. However, now that we are here, we are here. Karina wants to keep exploring. She was very smart and did not open other doors. Instead, he walked towards the depths of the cabin. Finally, she came to a room similar to a cockpit. There is a rudder on it and various charts. But no one is pulling the strings here. At this time, Roja thought of a more interesting idea. Immediately, he summoned the ship's spirit of Noah's Ark in his mind. I only heard Roja saying to the ship's spirit, "Left full rudder." As Roja's words fell, I saw the rudder in the cockpit turning strangely to the left. The strange scene in front of her made Karina's face instantly turn pale. She immediately turned around and looked behind herself. At the same time, he poked his head out of the cockpit and observed the dark corridor. However, there was still no trace of anyone. She didn't realize at all that Roja, who was using the fantasy fruit, was watching her silently behind her. Karina didn't find anything, but this was obviously even weirder. My heart trembled suddenly. Did she feel like she was on a ghost ship? However, the 2 people in the first cabin, the sailor's room, didn't look like ghosts. Thinking about it, this ship should be quite special. Karina can only comfort herself now. After all, we have reached the deepest part of the cabin. If she didn't gain anything, she would really feel unwilling to do so. Carefully retreat from the cockpit. Karina continued to fumble and came to the opposite room in the cockpit. Still very relaxed, he opened the door. Inside was an empty room. However, there is a cloak hanging on the wall. Other than that, it was deserted. Karina's face became a little fairer. The window in the room reflected the moonlight hitting her face. She really feels like this ship is getting weirder now. After exiting again, Karina came to another room. She found a beautiful woman lying in this room. It's just that this beautiful woman looks a little weird. He is obviously very good looking, but he sleeps with a sword in his arms. I don't know if he has this kind of special hobby. Just when Karina exited the room, Karina suddenly opened her eyes. Karina's eyes looked like ghost eyes. There is not a single ripple in it. However, she had already received Roja's order. Just let her sleep like this and don't bother with this person at all. So, Karina closed her eyes again. Entered the dream again. She also plans to continue dreaming and practice swordplay with her master in her dream. Another little while passed. Hard work pays off. Karina finally found the treasure room. Opened the heavy door of the treasure room. They are so resplendent inside that even the darkness cannot stop them from shining with their own light. Karina almost screamed. She had never seen such an exaggerated treasure. Most of it looks like gold. But there is no shortage of berry either. Those bundles of berries, according to Karina's calculations. The minimum value can reach more than 1 billion. It's simply not too scary. If she takes away these berries, she will directly become a rich woman. I won't use it at all in the future and continue to make a living by stealing. He calmed down his mind. Karina took out the small bag she carried with her. Karina wants to take the gold. But gold is really too heavy. If she really takes it with her, it will seriously affect her speed when she leaves. In desperation, Karina could only take away those few gems. And bundled berries. The corners of Karina's mouth rose crazily. The excitement in her mind even made her completely forget about the strange things on this ship. At the same time, it was impossible for her to see it. Behind her, there was Luoya's meaningful smile. Karina packed her bag bulgingly. Until it can't be stuffed anymore. Karina just retreated from the treasure room. At the same time, she was ecstatic in her heart. Great, now I just leave while they are sleeping. No one knows that I took these things. At the same time, Karina also complained in her heart that the owner of this ship was really too careless. Not only were there no patrols, but none of these rooms had locks. But what Karina didn't know was, this ship has a ship spirit, if it wasn't Roja's order. I'm afraid Karina won't even be able to enter the cabin. As for the patrol, that's even more funny. Except for places like the East China Sea, where news spreads slowly. Except for those who are inexplicably confident and arrogant. Who else would dare to board Noah's Ark after seeing the leader of Morning and Night Bird? With a big smile on his face, Karina walked outside. But at this moment, Roja had been observing behind her. Slowly stretched out his hand. Fantasy fruit awakening those breaking the wall. As a paramecia fruit, after the fruit awakens, it can affect the surrounding environment. Not to mention Roya, the strongest auxiliary fruit praised by the system. With Roja's fruit ability activated, Karina's senses were also tampered with almost instantly. Just like Aizen Sosuke's ability in Shinigami. However, one is hypnosis, and the other is a direct change in the environment. Obviously this one from Roja is a bit more advanced. As time passed, a smile appeared on Karina's face. Has begun to gradually disappear. She has now discovered that something is wrong. She started to return the same way according to the memory in her mind. But it was a long walk. Karina didn't notice the entrance when she walked in. This made her feel a little strange. Is it possible that I remembered it wrong? And then I got lost on this huge ship? Karina has not ruled out this possibility. This time, Karina walked towards the entrance. At the same time, he kept observing the changes in the cabin next to him. I want to find the way I came from. Only gradually, she discovered that something was wrong. Because she found that those cabin doors seemed to be repeating themselves. This gave Karina a very bad idea in her mind. Could it be that the path I am taking is constantly being repeated? Thinking of this, Karina felt goosebumps suddenly appear on her body. Karina took off an accessory from her body. Then put it on the ground. Then Karina walked forward. She didn't turn a corner, she just kept walking forward. The road seems to have no end. Karina kept praying in her heart that she was just worrying too much. However, when she continued to walk forward, she found that the accessories she had put down were not far away. Her eyes suddenly shrank. She suddenly realized that the path she had just walked was repeated. At this time, she suddenly remembered the strangeness of this ship. She only felt that her body had begun to tremble unconsciously. No, I have to escape. The weirder this ship is, the harder it is to wait any longer. Without any hesitation, Karina walked forward quickly. However, she saw her accessories again, appearing in front of her. This time, Karina did not go back, but kept turning and walking towards the entrance. However, her accessories appeared in front of her again. At this time, Karina looked at the door next to her. Karina took a deep breath and slowly stretched out her hand. Then he pushed the door open. I saw a staircase appearing in front of Karina. Karina's eyes lit up. Maybe this is the way out. Without thinking much, Karina walked towards the top of the stairs. When she walked up the stairs, only to find that he appeared in an orange orchard. For some reason, Karina just felt that the orange grove in front of her seemed a little familiar. It seemed like I had seen it somewhere. But she didn't think much about it at all. Now she could see the sky. Just jump down from the tangled branches next to the orange grove. She will be able to reach the deck. Thinking of this, Karina's movements became a little faster. Just when Karina jumped from the orange grove, she found that she appeared again in the corridor of the cabin. Horror! Fear! Weird! However, what frightened Karina even more? When she came to the orange grove again, she discovered that this orange orchard was actually the orange orchard of Nami and Noziko. As for the evidence, it was the text that she, Nami, and Noachigao carved on that tree together. Look at the words on the orange tree in front of you. Karina regretted it very much and came to the ship by herself. Where on earth did she come to? Seeing Karina's anxious scene, Roha didn't take it to heart. Instead, while the fruit ability continued to be activated, he returned to his room and went to sleep. In a blink of an eye, it was sunny. Roya woke up from his room. He stretched and then walked out of the room. Kuina was already outside the door, waiting for him. Before Roha, Kuina said at all. No need to wait at her door every morning. But in Kuina's words, it's seeing Roha every morning. You will feel more energetic and more motivated when training. In this regard, Roha didn't know what to say. At this time, Roha sensed Karina in the orange garden and found that after Karina ate a few oranges there, she fell asleep with the sky as her bed and the earth as her bed. That's where the orange grove is, surrounded by thick branches and not blown by the sea breeze. Otherwise, Karina will definitely catch a cold. As for Luffy and Kabi at this time, they were still in sleep. Roha asked the ship's spirit, "How long are we from the nearest island?" The sound of wind chimes rang in my ears. Roha understood what the ship's spirit meant. There was still about one morning. After getting the approximate time, Roha said to Kuina, who was standing in front of him, "Just got up, let's get ready to practice our skills and find a Poseidon to eat." I heard Roha's words. Kuina nodded. Then the two people came to the deck. The voices of the two people were not blocked at all. Even the ability of the fruit. Roha has also withdrawn. Because of the habits developed over the years. Even the slightest sound can wake Karina up from her sleep. So, Karina heard the sound of Roha and Kuina's footsteps. He immediately got up from the ground. He carefully stuck his head out and observed everything in front of him. Karina only saw the girl sleeping with a sword in her arms yesterday. Slowly draw out the death. The early sun that had just risen over the sea reflected on the blade, exuding bursts of sharp aura. Karina felt chills in her heart. She covered her mouth, not daring to make the slightest sound. The next second, Karina's figure appeared on the sea. The slightly slender figure raised the death in his hand high. Then he slashed out towards the sea with a powerful sword. The sword flashed. The next second, it tore the sea apart. Seeing this scene, Karina felt completely desperate. She has really entered the ghost ship. Otherwise, how could humans be so powerful? At this time, Roja leaned on the edge of the boat. Karina looked up at the orange grove and said, "How was it? This evening?" Roja's words reached Karina's ears. At this time, Karina can be considered a broken person. "Put your bag on the ground." Then he lay on the branch and said to Roja, "I know I was wrong. I will never do such a thing again. I didn't do anything. Can you let me out?" Karina said to Roja. However, Roja just shrugged. If apologizing is helpful, what else does Marine do? At this time, Karina's sword energy had once again shot out. Just killed one of the Poseidon species. At this time, Roja moved his fingers slightly. The Poseidon species flew straight into the sky. Ryujin Jakka. Accompanied by Roja's murmur. The Zanpakuto appeared in Roja's hand. Flames wrapped around the sword. Then surrounded with the Poseidon class. The flames grew slowly. But the temperature was not low at all. In the blink of an eye, the entire Poseidon class was cooked. "You're hungry, you should eat some too." With that said, Roja threw a steak towards Karina. "Can you really not let me go?" "Of course not. You dare to board my ship and want to steal something. Do you think I will let you go so easily? What do you want to do to me?" Karina didn't eat the steak in her hand immediately. Instead, he asked Roja. After all, she knew that Karina's power alone was not something she could compete with, let alone the captain in front of her. "What will happen to you?" "That's a good question." Just when Roja was about to continue talking, a newspaper bird flew from the sky. Roja didn't say much, and immediately handed the newspaper bird 100 belly and bought a newspaper. At the same time, Roja sighed. Sure enough, the East China Sea is cheaper. Like the newspapers in the Great Waterway, each newspaper costs 200 berries. It's like a huge profit. Karina was keenly aware of Roja, the Great Waterway just mentioned. She immediately reflected. "Did you come from the Grand Channel?" Roja responded lightly. Then he turned his attention to the newspaper. In the newspapers, the first thing that bore the brunt was Marine's announcement of Shichibukai's plan. At this time, Shichibukai officially faced the sea and announced this time's plan. It caused a huge uproar on the sea. Shichibukai already has 5 people, and there are 2 people left, waiting for others to join. The 5 of them are Jorko Myhawk, Bartholomew Bear, Boya Hancock, Jinbei, and Sha Crocodile. As for the remaining 2 people, Roja thought they should be Don Quixote da Flamingo and Trafalgar Law. As for the Yueguang Moria guy, he has been eliminated by the sea. Roja didn't take him seriously at all. After all, Moonlight Moria, in Roja's opinion, was really weaker than Crocodile. Just when Roja was thinking this, Karina pointed at Roja and said in disbelief, "I remembered it." Hearing Karina's voice, Roja looked at Karina and said lightly, "What did you remember?" "You are Marine General White Pigeon Roya." At this time, Roya was not wearing a cloak, so Karina naturally saw Roya's true face. "Then what?" Karina opened her mouth, wanting to say something. But she suddenly remembered that this was not a marine warship at all. It looks a little familiar. Suddenly, Karina's pupils shrank suddenly. She remembered when she had seen this ship. Not long ago, when she stole a chart from a ship, she saw the appearance of the ship in a newspaper. It seems to be the ship of a mysterious organization, the leader of Morning and Night Bird. Everything is connected. However, Karina seems to have discovered an even more terrifying fact. Why did Roya, a marine general, appear on the ship of the leader of a sage-eyed bird? "You are White Pigeon General Roya. But how could it be possible?" Karina looked at Roja in front of her in shock. His expression was very shocked. Roja didn't mind at all, took a bite of the Poseidon barbecue, and said to Karina, "So, does this conflict with my status as the leader of morning and night birds?" After hearing Roja's words, Karina froze on the spot. At this time, Roja said to Karina, "Tell me, how did you and Nami meet? Do you know Nami? She is in special training now." Roya did not hide Nami's traces, but spoke directly to Karina. "Special training? Of course, she is mine." "Yeah?" Karina's expression was slightly downcast. Then he said to Roja, "Actually, my encounter with Nami was also an accident. At that time, I had just stolen a ship's treasure and was about to leave, but I encountered a shipwreck." After a pause, Karina lay down on Noah's Ark, on the thick branches of the orange grove. "At that time, the waves washed me to the shore, and the tide was still high at that time. I even thought I might not be able to do it. Will die like this. But at this time, Nami and Nokigo appeared, and they rescued me. From then on, I lived with them, and we became really good friends." However, when talking about this, Karina began to grit her teeth and said, "But that guy Nami actually took away all my few savings when I was about to leave. He even called it a beautiful name. This is the accommodation fee." Looking at Karina in front of her, she looked like she was gnashing her teeth. Roja also imagined Nami's little money-crazy look. "It seems that your relationship is pretty good. In this case, you can avoid the death penalty, but you can't escape the living crime." After hearing Roja's words, Karina's expression changed. "Goodbye. Considering the fact that Nami and I know each other, can you really not let me go? I have returned all the treasures I stole, so can you really not just let me go?" Hearing Karina's words, Roja shook his head calmly. He immediately said to Karina, "Of course not. I will not let go of the thief who is sneaking on my boat and intends to steal something. You know, stealing is wrong." Hearing Roja's words, Karina felt very uneasy. Because she didn't know how she would be treated by Roya. She only hopes that Roja can look out for Nami's sake. It would be nice if she could feel a little better. As for escaping from Roja, she said she never wanted to experience what it was like to hit a wall with a ghost. A cloak was taken out from the system space. The spell ability is activated. Roja put it on Karina's body. "From today on, you are one of the members of Morning and Night Bird, just an external member." Karina felt happy at first, and then asked Roja, "What is an external member?" "The so-called external members are of course just doing odd jobs." "No, you're just a handyman," Karina said, a little depressed. However, as far as the current situation is concerned, Karina is still very satisfied. After all, this is me, coming into close contact with the Morning and Night Bird organization. Especially being able to join Morning and Night Bird, especially external members. She also felt very happy. You know, although this is the East China Sea, there are still some rumors about morning and evening birds. She still knows a lot. If she can become an internal member, it will really be her day of great success. However, Roja seemed to have already guessed Karina's idea. Then he said to Karina, "If you want to join a Saya bird, there is a chance, as long as you can defeat Nami. Or you can draw with her." After hearing Roja's words, Karina suddenly felt that her future was bright. Looking at Karina, who was so excited, although Roja couldn't bear to hurt her, he still said to Karina, "She is in special training now. If you don't work hard, you will only be an external member for the rest of your life." Finally, Roja said to Karina, "You don't have to think about running away or anything. But you know my identity. Do you think I will let you go easily?" The smile on Karina's face slowly disappeared. For a moment, she didn't know whether she was happy or sad. Time keeps passing. Finally, after spending a whole morning, everyone arrived at an island in the East China Sea. The spell ability is activated. Roja took Luffy and KB and flew directly down from Noah's Ark. Without saying a word, he directly threw Luffy and KB out. At the same time, he said to Luffy, "Luffy, if you don't want to lose your companions in the future, just work hard to train your strength. Don't waste a lot of time on eating and sleeping." Luffy looked at Roja, who was not far away, and smiled naively at Roja. "Thank you, Uncle, I will definitely work hard. In this sea, no one can hurt my partner. I hope you're not just talking. Roya's face hidden under the cloak remained unchanged. After watching Luffy and KB walk towards the island, they were ready to leave. But at this moment, Karina, who had been standing next to her, stopped Roha. Master Chief, I have a sea chart here. Should we go and explore there? I heard from the owner of this sea chart that the treasures recorded in this sea chart can be piled up into mountains. Hearing Karina's words, Roha was immediately curious. He said to Karina, "Who is the owner of this chart you are talking about?" When Karina heard Roha's words, she scratched her head and said to Roha, "I don't know, after all, he is definitely not as famous as the leader." As expected of the ghostly Karina, what she said was quite beautiful. I only heard Karina say to Roha, "But what impressed me deeply is that this captain seems to look like a clown, with a big red nose hanging on his nose, which looks very funny." After hearing Karina's words, Roha became somewhat interested in this chart. "The person you are talking about is probably Buggy the Clown." "Buggy the Clown?" Karina repeated a sentence, but there was no impression of Buggy the Clown in her mind. In this regard, Roha just said, "He's just an interesting pirate, but since it's his chart, it doesn't matter if he goes to take a look." When Luo Ye and others were sailing quickly towards the location marked on the chart, the other side. As a Marine General, Roy Shiragain received an urgent mission from the Warring States period. Without any hesitation, Roha sensed what happened to the Phantom Shadow clone. He immediately transferred his body to General Bai Ge. At this time, above the sea, Roha stood on the deck of the dog-headed warship. Next to him was Roha, who had just invited Maginot. She was beside Roya, adjusting the refreshing wine for him. The phone bug rings. Bulu Bulu. I saw the phone bug imitating the face of the Warring States period. Roya answered the call and said to the phone bug, "Sir Fleet Admiral, this is White Pigeon. Bai Ge, are you and Garp together now?" "Yes, Lord Garp is right next to you." After hearing what Roha said, Warring States' tone did not calm down at all, but became even more anxious. At this time, Garp also curiously came to Roha's side and said to Sengoku on the other side of the phone, "Sengoku, what are you looking for us? Don't tell me how big the pirates can be here in the East China Sea. Doing evil here." "You are right, Doflamingo has come to South Blue and hijacked Sky Gold." After hearing Sengoku's words, Garp and Roha's expressions changed slightly. The change in Garp's expression was one of great shock. But the change in Roha's expression seemed to be within his expectation. As for Maginot next to him, he couldn't understand Sengoku's words at all. But when she heard about the Tianlong people, she also knew the seriousness of the matter this time. "But this is not over yet," I only heard Warring States say again. And not only that, the Revolutionary Army also launched revolutionary activities against the Kingdom of Bade Lila. King Lila XIII sent a signal to our marine asking for assistance. I have sent troops to suppress it, but I heard that this time, the dragon is also among them. As Warring States finished speaking, Garp's expression suddenly became a little strange. "There is no way. Who can let Garp's son be a dragon? What about the dragon who created the Revolutionary Army and wants to overthrow the world government?" So, when I heard the Warring States period talking about this, Garp immediately said to Sengoku, "Do you mean to ask us to go over and provide support now? My idea is for you to act separately. One of you can stop Doflamingo and recapture the heavenly gold. This time, the heavenly gold must not be snatched away by pirates, even if he is a former celestial dragon. The other one is going to the kingdom of Bade Lila to provide support. He must completely block the dragon's plan. We absolutely cannot allow him to subvert the kingdom again." Hearing Sengoku's words, Garp almost didn't hesitate and said immediately, "Then it doesn't matter if I stop Doflamingo." Garp looked at Roha next to him. The corner of Roha's mouth raised slightly. "It doesn't matter to me. Whether it's Doflamingo or Long's Revolutionary Army, I'm confident that I can defeat them." Luo Ye's words were like a reassurance for Warring States. Regarding Roha's strength, Warring States no longer dared to make any wild guesses. After all, the current Roja's terrifying strength has reached the highest level in the history of generals. Coupled with these few times, reputation has been rapidly accumulated and military achievements have been continuously accumulated. Warring States feels that no one will be able to compete with Roja for the position of Fleet Admiral in the next term. Even Akiji, the Dove General, was not competitive at all when facing Roja. You can make your own decisions on these two matters. I believe you. After Warring States finished speaking, he hung up the phone. After all, for the Warring States period, the strength of Roja and Garp, no matter what task they were completing, all should be able to say that it is more than enough. Lord Garp, then leave the rebellion in the South Blue Battleisla Kingdom to me. I will definitely complete the mission. Hearing Roja's words, Garp patted Roja heavily on the shoulder. Then I'll leave it to you. As for that boy Long, if you can catch him for me, you must catch him for me. Then let's see how I deal with him. When Garp said these words, the way he gritted his teeth made Roja feel a little unable to help but laugh. But he knew that even though Garp said so. In fact, deep down, I still don't want Long to be caught. After all, no matter what, he is still his son. Makino, just follow Lord Garp's ship and return to Marineland. Makino nodded and then said to Roja, I know, Roja, you must be more careful this time. Don't get hurt. Makino looked at Roja worriedly. In response, Roja just nodded lightly. In the next second, Roja made a handprint with both hands and bit his thumb at the same time, causing blood to flow out from the thumb. Psychic technique, Fire Dragon. This is the Fire Dragon that I signed with Vegapunk when I first went there. All this time, I have never had the chance to use this move. Finally at this time, it came into use. I saw a lot of small characters appearing on Garp's dog-headed warship. These tiny characters continued to spread, and finally formed a big circle. Then, the next second, a large amount of smoke appeared on the dog-headed warship out of thin air. A fire dragon appeared directly below Roja. Carrying Roja, it flew towards the distance. This ability completely stunned Garp and other crew members. This ability of Roja is something they have never heard of or seen. On the contrary, Garp thought to himself again. Another weird ability. They don't know how many abilities Baigu has. This time, though, the events took place in South Blue. But the direction is not the same. The Kingdom of Battleisla is located near the border of South Blue, roughly connected with the East China Sea. Therefore, Roja actually flew back. At this time, Kingdom of Battleisla. Long led the cadres of the four armies to attack the royal hinterland of the Kingdom of Battleisla. I want to wipe out all the royal family of the Kingdom of Battleisla, and then liberate this country. And they were already fighting in the wilderness of the Kingdom of Battleisla. Long was hiding in the rear, looking at the deployment map of the Kingdom of Battleisla, and constantly mobilizing the army. As for the Fourth Army, the Revolutionary Army, after receiving the command of Long, they all led their troops and launched the most violent attack towards the Kingdom of Battleisla. The dragon looked at the map of the Kingdom of Battleisla and said softly, At most one day, the Kingdom of Battleisla will cease to exist. In the hinterland of the Kingdom of Battleisla, as the king, Rila XIII sat on his own throne. Looking at the minister below, he was trembling constantly. Lyra XIII felt extremely angry. As ministers in the Kingdom of Battleisla, you usually dominate and enjoy glory and wealth, but now, the Revolutionary Army launched an attack on us, but you asked me to directly open the city gate and surrender directly. What's the point of this? Decency. King Lyra XIII was sitting on his throne, looking at the ministers below, and kept yelling. Boom, boom, boom! At this time, there was a huge roar outside again. The feeling of the ground shaking, even in the hinterland of the Kingdom of Battleisla, can clearly feel this tremor. It was so frightening that Lyra XIII fell off the throne. His face brushed, and became very pale. What happened? Did the Revolutionary Army rush in? Just when Lyra XIII was shocked, a soldier suddenly ran in from outside. Reporting to King Lyra XIII, Your Majesty King, Your Majesty King. It's not good. The first city district has fallen, and even the people spontaneously gave up their rooms to let the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army rest inside. After hearing the soldiers' report, Lyra 13 felt as if his chest was filled with countless angry flames. But King Lyra 13 said that he had nothing to do about it. After all, the wall falls and the hosen falls apart. Now that the Revolutionary Army has gained momentum, with the strength of the country, he has no way to resist the attack of the Revolutionary Army. At this moment, the diamond-encrusted telephone bug next to Lyra 13 rang. The phone bug imitates the appearance of the Warring States period. Without any hesitation, King Lyra 13 immediately picked up the phone. Warring States, I hope you can bring me good news, otherwise, instead of giving my annual military expenses to you, I might as well give them directly to Germa 66. Hearing the words of Lyra 13, Warring States just felt a headache. Fortunately, the most powerful general in marine history had already moved towards the kingdom of Bade Lila at this time. Your Majesty, I have sent General Baigut to support your country. You must persist. I originally thought it was a huge military force. But when Lyra 13 heard this, he felt that the hope in his heart had completely sunk to the bottom. Warring States, are you sure you're not here to make fun of me? How can just one person turn the tide of the war around? Even General Baigut does the same. Please believe in our marine, and please believe in the strength of General Beige. He is the most powerful general since the founding of our marine. There is no one else. After hearing Warring States' assurance, Lyra 13 hung up the phone bug directly. Your Majesty, what did the Warring States Fleet Admiral say? He said that Beige Loya would come to the rescue alone. How could he possibly defeat those guys from the Revolutionary Army by himself? King Lyra 13 sat on the throne again and sighed. But the eyes of the minister below completely lit up. Your Majesty, we have heard of General White Pigeon. His strength is definitely capable of suppressing this rebellion. Hopefully. What can Lyra 13 say? He could only place all his hopes on Roja. At this time, above the sky, Roja crossed his arms and stood on the back of the fire dragon. The fire dragon kept waving its wings and flew quickly towards the location designated by Roja. The remaining clouds in the sky were shattered by the fire dragon. At this time, the fire dragon's speed has reached a certain level. Roja held the phone bug in his hand and looked at the Bade Lila kingdom filled with smoke and smoke in front of him, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Sengoku Fleet Admiral, I have arrived above the kingdom of Badalila and immediately entered combat mode. However, I feel that if we quell the rebellion, it may cause greater damage. It doesn't matter what kind of destruction there is, as long as the Revolutionary Army is suppressed. Learn. As Roja's words fell, a flash of cruelty flashed in his eyes. This is obviously a good opportunity to increase military merit. At the same time, it is also a good opportunity to hone your sword skills. He is now close to reaching the realm above the peak of the Supreme Swordsman. But there is still no way to fully understand it. Roja wanted to pass this battle and be promoted to the peak of the Supreme Swordsman. Look up there. What is that? Monster? Is this some kind of monster? It's so scary. Is this an esper of the animal-type fruit phantom beast species? The quality of the Revolutionary Army below is somewhat uneven. So when seeing the fire dragon in the sky, everyone's attitude is a little different. The dragon walked out from behind and looked up at the fire dragon in the sky. When he saw this fire dragon, he had a faint, ominous feeling in his heart. Without any hesitation, Long immediately reminded the leaders of the four armies through the phone call to pay attention to the fire dragon in the sky. Just as the dragon finished speaking, the fire dragon in the sky suddenly swooped down. The powerful wings and its own weight allowed the fire dragon to reach its peak speed. Before the fire dragon reached the ground, the wind pressure caused by its rapid descent knocked many people to the ground. Spray flames. As Roja's words fell, the fire dragon took a deep breath. The abdominal cavity inside the body suddenly began to burn. Along with the fire dragon's breath, a large amount of flames raged out from the fire dragon's mouth towards the ground. In an instant, flames burned the earth. Many soldiers were directly buried in the flames. Then, Roha's figure came into view. Roha fell from the sky between his fingers, and the cloak of justice on his body was unbridled and cold. This figure. No. It's Marine's most powerful general. White Pigeon. General Beige was actually present in person. Informed the leader immediately. Those soldiers, when they saw the White Pigeon Roha, said that they were stunned. They did not expect that they would encounter the White Pigeon Roya on the battlefield of the Bade Lila Kingdom in South Blue. Moreover, the way White Pigeon Roya appears is so impressive. This is beyond their imagination. Without those people's reports, Long had already noticed the arrival of White Dove Roha. At this time, Sabo, who was next to the dragon, saw the scene in front of him and immediately said to Roha, "Master Leader, let me go over and meet him." When Long heard Sabo's words, he frowned at first, and then seemed to think of something. He nodded to Sabo and said at the same time, "Sabo, be careful. The strength of General White Pigeon is obvious to all on the sea." Hearing Long's words, Sabo smiled and said, "Don't worry, leader, I know what's going on." As soon as Sabo's words fell, he immediately rushed towards Roha from the rear of the army. At this time, Roha directly took out Buddha from the system space. Kill one person in 10 steps. Blood was constantly spilled on the battlefield. Roya is like a Shinigami on the battlefield. Wherever you go, not a blade of grass grows. Any revolutionary army he saw had no chance of leaving alive. The fire dragon also blocked the direction of the revolutionary army's attack. The revolutionary army had no choice but to launch an attack into the hinterland of the kingdom of Badalila. There was already a pool of blood on the ground. In the pool of blood, there were countless corpses. The scene of corpses everywhere makes people feel like they are in purgatory. Winner takes all, loser for co. In this sea where the weak eat the strong, the laws of the forests are even more powerful. The breeze is gentle. Roha held the Butayuhuan in his hand and kept walking towards the rear of the revolutionary army. At this time, Luoya's anger became more and more intense. The revolutionary army was demoralized by the killing. Countless people dropped their weapons and fled towards the back. "Do you think you can run away?" Roha murmured, slowly stretched out his left hand, and activated the Phantom Fruit ability. In an instant, the entire space seemed to be surrounded by phantoms. Among the phantoms are countless powerful phantoms of mythical beasts. Qinglong, Qilin, Xuanwu, Suzaka, White Tiger. It even transformed into strange plants, entangling a large number of revolutionary troops. Just when Roha was about to get rid of them all at once, Sabo held the steel pipe in his hand and ran towards Roha quickly. The steel pipe is swung, and the armed domineering energy is condensed on it. I saw Sabo gnashing his teeth and rushing towards Roha. "Marine, are all murderers like you? General White Pigeon, I think you are an inhuman killing machine," Sabo shouted angrily at Roya. But Roha didn't take Sabo's words seriously. Buddha trembled slightly. Roha held the hilt of the sword in his hand and slashed diagonally. A flash of silver light flashed. There seemed to be a sword chant in the air. The sound is crisp and clear. The next second, Sabo felt his weapon become lighter. The steel pipe suddenly broke into 2 pieces. How is this possible? So strong? Before Sabo could react, Roha took a step forward again. The sword light flashed. Sabo only saw the sword body of Buddha, which was constantly enlarging in his eyes. He was about to kill Sabo. A man wearing a dark green cloak suddenly appeared in front of Sabo. A hand full of veins stretched out from the cloak. Armed colors are wrapped around it, then the index finger and middle finger are brought together, the ring finger and little finger are brought together, and the palm looks like a dragon's claw. Dragon claw. Awesome! There was a crisp sound as if Buddha was slashing on superhard metal. Dragon? Have you finally come out? I can't watch you kill Sabo. So you can bear to see me kill these ordinary soldiers? Is it because they are too weak? After hearing Roha's words, Long said, "Of course it's because revolution requires sacrifice. Why do I think you are so hypocritical?" Roha's expression remained unchanged, and his arm domineering energy wrapped around the sword. In an instant, the sharpness of Buddha Yuhuan increased to another level. Long's expression changed. This time, he didn't hold anything back. He used almost all his strength. The armed color of the palm is a bit more domineering. Then he suddenly grabbed Roha's Buddha soul. Innocent. As Roha's words fell, the next second followed. Luo Ye immediately used the artistic conception of his supreme swordsman and slashed towards the dragon with overwhelming power. Long's pupils, hidden under his dark green cloak, shrank suddenly. Subconsciously, I wanted to retreat, but the speed was still slower. Just one knife. The color of the world suddenly changed. Dark clouds appeared in the sky. The thunder dragon roared in the dark clouds, and the flashing thunder light declared its power like everyone. Such a terrifying vision of heaven and earth, coupled with the bloody corpses at this time, is like purgatory on earth. TSK. Long only felt that his palm was cut off by the sharpest attack in the world. He had been uninjured for a long time, but at this time, blood flowed out of his palms quickly. The strong wind blew away Sabo and everything around him. Only the dragon and Roha in the center are left, fighting constantly here. But even if Long personally takes action, Roha still has not taken back his fruit awakening ability. The transformed plants and mythical beasts were still attacking them continuously. Because the fruit has awakened. The dispersion of power is not serious, and each phantom transformed can basically reach the strength of a first-time lieutenant general. For experts, this may be garbage. But for these soldiers, even the strength of a new lieutenant general is enough to defeat them. The hinterland of the kingdom of Badalila. Lyra 13 listened to the reports coming back from the front, and the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. Is what you said true? You are sure you didn't lie to me? Was the front line really suppressed by Baigo alone? After hearing the soldiers' report, King Lyra 13 was so excited that he stood up from the throne. Reporting to the king, General Baigo has single-handedly stopped the entire revolutionary army. King Lyra 13 only felt that these were the most beautiful words in the world. As long as you keep the green hills, you won't have to worry about running out of firewood. As the king, he can continue to dominate. Those people who took the revolutionary troops to their homes to rest, see how I will punish them when the time comes, and I won't be able to calm down if I don't kill them. As the king's words fell, the ministers in front of Lila 13 immediately kowtowed to the king. It's just that they didn't notice at all that behind the throne, there was a phantom shadow clone of Roya. There's no distance limit for clones. Therefore, after using the Fruit Awakening ability, Roha let a large number of phantoms penetrate into the depths of the Bade Lila kingdom. After learning what kind of king this king was, Roha had some ideas in his mind. At the same time, the battle between Roha and Dragon continued. After learning about Roha's fighting prowess in the kendo, Long didn't relax at all. Everyone's attention was focused on Roha. The battle between the two people has entered a fierce stage. At this time, Roha completely abandoned his defense and continued to attack. He is working on his sword. In his opinion, the sword is the sharpest weapon in the world, capable of cutting everything. Since it represents the strongest offense, why should we defend? The strongest offense is the best defense. Find your own path on offense. Roha felt that he had a clearer understanding of the path of swordsmanship. Faintly talking about the realm above the peak of the supreme swordsman, Roha felt as if he was getting closer. Baigu, do you really think that the current marine is correct? During the break in the battle, Long asked Roha. The expression on Roha's face did not change at all, and he said calmly to Long. What do you mean by this? Do you want me to betray Marine and join you? When Long heard Luo Ye's words, he felt happy, if he could really get Baigu to join the revolutionary army. Not only would it be a huge blow to Marine, but it would also allow the revolutionary army to be heard by more people. This will attract more people to join the revolutionary cause. In this case, the revolutionary army will have a stronger influence. But how could Roha not know what Long was thinking? Baigu, open your eyes and take a good look. See how dirty this world is. Countless civilians are living in dire straits, and they need to be truly liberated. Long said to Roja. But the movements of his hands did not pause at all, and their strength did not weaken at all. The battle between the two people still shows no signs of slacking off. However, Luoya was very disdainful of Long's words. In dire straits? Isn't this what this world is like? The weak and the strong eat the fittest. The most important thing is that you keep talking about liberating the people and liberating the country, but you actually do it again. What is it? Roja took a deep breath, and then said to Long, free them, get the money from them, become the funds of the organization, and then leave directly, give those people hope, and then send them to hell? Hearing Roja's words, Long's expression changed because he did so. In his opinion, this is something that the Revolutionary Army must go through if it wants to pass the development stage. Only with enough berry can we recruit troops. Carry out organizational development. After all, even the morning and evening bird controlled by Luoya himself requires huge funds to support various expenses. Otherwise, Roja would not have given the golden fruit to Nami to eat. Because of Roja's words, Long's mind was a little turbulent. He obviously didn't expect that Roja, as a Marine, could actually see this kind of thing so thoroughly. In an instant, he was beheaded by Roja's Buddha-Yuvuin. Blood spurted out from the dragon's chest instantly. At the same time, his cloak was completely chopped into pieces by Roja. The cloak revealed the dragon's face. That terrifying tattoo also shows everyone how extraordinary the dragon is. Long looked at the wound on his chest. Then he took a deep look at Roja and said, By Ge, we will still have a battle in the future. As Long's words fell, Long said to the others, Retreat. The next second, the dragon's figure disappeared directly from everyone's eyes. At this time, Sabo reacted very quickly and immediately retreated with the others. The other 4 armies also received Long's order at this time and quickly retreated back. Watch these people gradually go away. The corners of Roja's mouth raised slightly. This time, not only did his reputation spread far and wide again, he was also able to accumulate a large amount of military merit. At the same time, he had other plans. The Phantom Fruit Awakening ability disappears. The phantom creations that filled the sky were all dispelled by Roja. Then, Roja came to the Fire Dragon, and then rode the Fire Dragon and flew towards the hinterland of the kingdom. After the king learned that the Revolutionary Army was actually repelled by White Pigeon Roya, he couldn't be too shocked. Soon, Roja came to the king. Looking at the king in front of him, the corners of Roja's mouth rose slightly. Although the Revolutionary Army retreated, he did not leave. When he came to the king, Roja made no move to kneel down. Just standing in front of the king, he said to the king, Your Majesty, the Revolutionary Army has retreated. I have completed the mission given to me by Fleet Admiral. Not bad, you did a good job, now you can go. I will definitely say something nice to you in front of the Warring States Fleet Admiral. Leela 13 can be said to be very stingy. After the Revolutionary Army retreated, he just wanted to drive Roja back as soon as possible. He doesn't want to give Roja any monetary reward. You pay Marine yourself, and Marine is supposed to protect himself. If it was a good king in the eyes of ordinary people, or an ordinary king, Roja wouldn't care. But as a king who often exploited the people, Roja felt that he had to punish him. Your Majesty, I'm going back now, but before you let me leave, can I chat with you for a while? I'm very curious about how Your Majesty can be called such an excellent king. Hearing Roja's words, Lyra 13 suddenly laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect that, General Bai Ge. You have such good observation skills. Even my excellent way of governing the country can be discovered by you. No wonder you will become the most powerful Marine general in history. Hearing the shameless words of Lyra 13, Roja felt very disgusted. Lyra 13 looked at the ministers around him, just waved his hand, and then said to them, You all, please step aside, I want to have a good chat with Bai Ge. I didn't expect that my wise and powerful. I was finally discovered by a discerning person, ha 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 ha. The ministers were speechless when they heard the words of King Lyra 13. They didn't know what kind of medicine General Bai Ge was selling in the gourd. Or maybe, the Sengoku Fleet Admiral has something to say to King Leela 13. Without too much entanglement, they just sighed in their hearts. They did not expect that this tyrant had not yet stepped down. As long as this tyrant does not step down, then when will this country be able to develop? Looking at the ministers in the hinterland, they have already walked out. With a smile on his face, Roja looked at Lyra 13 sitting on the throne and said, "My lord, do you feel guilty in your heart?" "Guilty? What do you want to say? Didn't you say that you want to discuss the ways of governing the country with me?" Hearing Lyra Xi's almost shameless words, Luoya expressed himself, and almost rolled his eyes. "I don't want to hear about your way of governing the country. I just know that if you continue to be the king, this country will never be peaceful." After hearing Roja's words, Lyra 13 was furious. "What do you mean by these words? You are just a marine general. I am a member of the world government, and you are supposed to protect us." After hearing what Lyra 13 said, Roja didn't want to continue to be entangled with him. He just looked at Lyra 13 coldly. The next second, Roja's figure came in front of Lyra 13. He leaned down and said softly to King Lyra 13, "So, let me sit on your throne." As Roja finished speaking, Ryujin Jakka appeared on Roja's left hand. Flames wrapped around the sword body, and Lyla Xi's pupils shrank suddenly. He did not expect that Baijelioya, a marine general, would have such ambitions. He actually wants to be a king. Isn't he afraid of being exposed? Before Lyra 13 could say anything to beg for mercy, he just felt that his thinking seemed to have suddenly stopped. Immediately afterwards he saw his body, which was already full of blood. But the moment the blood spurted out, all of it was swallowed up mercilessly by the flames spit out by Ryujin Jakka. When it comes to killing people and silencing them, Ryujin Jakka is obviously more useful. There won't be any trace left at all. It was very easy to completely wipe out the traces of Lyla 13. Then, Roja gently snapped his fingers. The phantom fruit ability is activated. I saw ripples in the air. The next second, a phantom that looked exactly like King Lyra 13 appeared in front of Roja. "From now on, this country will be handed over to you." "Yes." Although they are all controlled by Roja, there still needs to be a sense of ritual. In addition, Roja listened by the way to see if there was any difference between the voice of Ryla 13 and the previous Ryla 13. In the end, Roja came to the conclusion that there was no difference. After settling everything, Roja turned and left the palace. At this time, the ministers were outside the huge door, waiting for the summons from King Lyra 13. However, they did not wait for the summons, but waited until Roja came out. "Everyone, the matter has been completely resolved. I will leave. Congratulations, General Beige." After watching General Baigu disappear from their sight, they just re-entered the palace. As soon as they entered the palace, they saw Ryla 13 sitting on his throne, but for some unknown reason, they just felt that there was something different about Ryla 13. "Your Majesty the King!" Many ministers knelt down respectfully before Lyla 13. The phantom-changing Lyra 13 nodded slowly at this time. Then he said very seriously to everyone, "I had a great conversation with General Baigu just now, and I did understand that our country can no longer continue. We must improve our economy and strengthen our national strength, and then expand its territory, striving to build its own country into the most powerful country." Lyra 13 added, "When the time comes, we will not be afraid at all even if it is a giant country." I heard these words suddenly spoken by my king. Those ministers said they were confused. Is this still their king? Can he still be a king who can exercise cruel tyranny? Is he still the king who treats his people as a squeeze machine? As if feeling their shock, Roja did not take their expressions to heart. He just said to many ministers, "I just discussed with General Baigu and felt that we must start from improving the people's happiness index. Only when people's livelihood improves, can a country become truly strong." Having said this, King Layla 13 dressed as Roya said at this time. "After all, water can carry a boat and capsize it. The cornerstone of the country is still the people." When they heard that their king could say these words, they felt very moved in their hearts. I only saw these ministers. Without saying a word, they knelt directly in front of Roja and said to Roja, Lira 13. Your Majesty, if you can have such an idea, why won't our country become stronger? At this time, Numenon Roja, who had already walked outside, raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Fire Dragon, let's go to Malin Fando. Hearing Roja's words, the fire dragon flapped its wings, then crawled down, allowing Roja to get on its back. But at this moment, Garp called him a bug. The phone bug imitated Garp's face, and Roya picked it up. Master Garp, I have finished solving the problem here. Is there anything you can do? Roya, I may need your help here. That guy Doflamingo, I don't know where he got the technology. The ship can move so fast. We can't catch up at all, and now we are in a stalemate. Garp's words were heard. Roja's expression remained unchanged. Master Garp, I understand. I'll rush over right now. After hanging up the phone, Luoya planned to wait for this period of time to be completed and take another 4 months of vacation. After earning military merit, you can't treat yourself badly. Thinking of this, Roja said to the fire dragon at his feet, Fly over there. Let's go support Garp. The fire dragon roared, its fiery red flying wings flapped continuously, and its speed suddenly increased by a level. Roja crossed his arms and stood on the back of the fire dragon, with the robe of justice flying continuously behind him. Looks extremely handsome. At the same time, the news that the revolutionary army was defeated by Roja alone has spread like wildfire. If you want to hide this kind of thing, there is no way to hide it. Fortunately, Long, the leader of the revolutionary army, did not intend to hide. Spread the news directly and proactively. At the same time, Roja and the revolutionary army were also spread, as if there was some agreement. This is naturally false, but it would be nice if it can cause some trouble for Roja. Dragon's requirements are not very high. The fire dragon flew quickly in the air. About an hour or so, Roja saw Garp's dog-headed warship from the air. Garp's dog-headed warship is not a general-class warship, so it is relatively normal that it cannot catch up with Doflamingo's ship. Of course, Roja thought that it was Caesar Courant who modified Doflamingo's ship like a warship to allow the ship to move so fast. Flamingo. Doflamingo, wearing a pink robe, stood on the deck. The moment Roja appeared from the sky, a slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It's finally here. As long as Roja can't do anything to me, then I can become Shichibukai, and then I can implement my subsequent plans, Fufufufu. Doflamingo suppressed his voice and kept laughing wildly. Obviously, he has already thought about the current situation. How can we defeat Roja? Torbol, give me the bullhorn. Doflamingo stretched out his hand, and Torbol put the loudspeaker phone bug into Doflamingo's hand. Immediately, Doflamingo held a loudspeaker phone in his hand and shouted to Roja, General White Pigeon. I had expected that the old guy Garp would ask you to come over and help. So, I have been prepared. After hearing Doflamingo's words, Roja's heart did not waver at all. You can go back first. Spiritualism is over. Roja sent the fire dragon directly back to his previous location. At this time, Roja switched to moonwalk and kept staying in the air. At this moment, Doflamingo grinned and said, I have prepared a lot of explosive rocks. If you dare to get close, I will detonate the explosive rocks. When the time comes, not only will the gold in the sky disappear directly, but you will also you can guarantee that you will take back the heavenly gold in front of me and at the same time resist the attack of the explosive rock. After hearing Doflamingo's words, Roja already knew what he was thinking. As long as it can make him feel afraid, then Doflamingo will be successful. Then as a Shichibukai, he will be able to obtain more privileges. Thinking of this, a light flashed in Roja's eyes. It's a pity that he can't choose anything. In Roja's view, the gold in the sky is dispensable. With his current reputation, even this pile of heavenly gold can be completely sunk into the sea. Warring states won't say anything more. Thinking of this, Roja slowly drew out the Buddha Yuhuan and directly greeted him with a slash. A white sword light flashed, and the sword energy seemed to tear through the air and surge towards Doflamingo. After Doflamingo saw this scene, the expression on his face changed instantly. Silk thread suddenly appeared in his hand, and the thread flashed with different colors. 5-color thread. As Doflamingo's words fell, his hands were seen grabbing forward. A total of 10 threads on the left and right turned into colorful colors and attacked Roja's slashing attack. At the same time, Doflamingo said to Roja, "White Pigeon, aren't you afraid of me and will detonate the explosive rock?" Hearing Doflamingo's words, Roja's expression remained unchanged. "If you want to commit suicide, you can try it." The veins on Doflamingo's forehead bulged out in large numbers, looking very scary. He miscalculated. He originally planned to put the heavenly gold on the ship, and then use the explosive rock bought on the black market as a threat. Everything he did was centered on heavenly gold. If Roja doesn't care about the gold in the sky, then everything he does will be in vain. Damn it, are you still a marine? As a lackey of the celestial dragons, shouldn't you be protecting your master's money? Doflamingo gritted his teeth and said to Roja. As Doflamingo finished speaking, the thread he created immediately collided with Roja's slash. Just the sword flashed. All the threads were cut off. The sword energy slash continued towards Doflamingo as if there was no change. Unknowingly, Luoya's cultivation in the first level of swordsmanship has surpassed the peak of the supreme swordsman. He was just one step away from being able to feel the supreme power. What an exaggeration! Doflamingo felt the attack of this slash and his body bent slightly. Awakening desolate waves white line. Doflamingo's heart is ringing with alarm. Without any hesitation, he used the ability of the fruit to awaken. Ever since being blasted by Roya, Doflamingo has continued to increase his strength. Now, his strength has reached the state of fruit awakening. After the Paramecia fruit awakens, it has the ability to affect the surrounding environment. I saw that at this time, the entire rear and upper half of Doflamingo's ship was transformed into countless white silk threads by the power of the thread fruit. These white silk threads are arranged horizontally. It continued to surge towards the sky, forming a raging wave attack like a wave, surging up from below Roja. Gradually moved closer to Roja, who is surrounded in the middle. Finally, a huge twist-shaped white line of waves was formed. Then, he suddenly shrank towards Roja. Seeing the attack of these silk threads, Roja did not immediately fight back. Rather, he deliberately puts himself in danger. Because he suddenly thought about whether he could break through in danger. I saw Roja holding the Buddhayuhuan, placing it on his chest, and then slowly closed his eyes. The body is constantly nurturing the powerful sword intent. Below, Doflamingo saw Roja, trapped in his wild white line. He burst out laughing immediately. Fu, I didn't expect that Bai Ge, the most powerful general, would be at this level. Because of his increasing strength, Doflamingo saw the scene in front of him without any doubt. I just feel like my abilities have become stronger. However, even though he thought so in his heart, he was not too careless. Without any hesitation, Doflamingo used the fruit's abilities again. He even directly released his strongest move. He wants to defeat Roja. When the time comes, he will not only be able to become Shichibukai, but also be able to rise again. Thinking of this, Doflamingo felt that his whole body was full of strength. 16 rounds of Holy Bullets God Thread. As Doflamingo finished speaking, 16 huge white lines of high-density armed color were seen rising from the upper section behind the ship. Stab at Roja at an extremely fast speed. This speed is so fast that even if Garp wanted to help at this time, he would still be unable to intervene. That guy Bai Ge. What's going on? Why don't you resist quickly? Garp's hands grasped the edge of the boat, and he looked at the large number of white threads in the sky, constantly entangled with Roja, and his heart suddenly became suspended. Because even he felt very dangerous after feeling this level of attack. In the sky, 16 super-fast white giant threads stabbed towards Roja at extremely fast speeds. Roja obviously also sensed the approaching danger with his knowledge and domineering attitude. But this is not enough. Closer. More dangerous. A little more painful. Roja kept repeating these words in his mind. Looking at it, those huge white lines of waves were about to pierce Roja. When Doflamingo saw the scene before him, he even showed a cruel smile and whispered, "Go to hell, by G." However, at this moment, Roja, who was entangled in white threads, suddenly opened his eyes. The arms jerked hard. The soaring sword intent soared straight into the sky. The white silk was torn open immediately, and Buddhayuhuan, one of the 12 skills of the Supreme Sharp Sword, was trembling crazily at this time. It seems that it cannot bear the sword intention of Roja. The weather begins to change. Just like on the kingdom battlefield before, dark clouds began to rage in the sky. The wind is raging. Thunder and lightning. The sea is under the strong wind, and the waves are getting bigger. Seeing that 16 vicious bullets were about to be fired at Roja, I saw Roya laying down Buddhayuhuan. Then he held the hilt of the sword with both hands, and then thrust it out. Cut it off with one knife. Call out. A sharp white slash, showing a circular arc, like a disc. At great speed. Slashed towards Doflamingo. The terrifying slash directly swept away thousands of tons of sea water. Above the sea. It was like being bitten hard by a terrifying beast. For a while, it was completely impossible to get back together. With this slash, Roja was successfully promoted to the peak of the Supreme Swordsman. Ding! Congratulations to host for being promoted to a level above the Supreme Swordsman, a state called perfection. At this time, Roja is like an unsheathed sword. The whole body is extremely sharp. Crash! The disc-like slash cuts through the sea water, even in a short period of time. The wanton sword energy swallowed up all the surrounding white threads and tore them apart. Seeing this scene in front of him, Doflamingo felt his body numb. How is this possible? This is my most powerful move, and it was easily broken by Baigu. Doflamingo was unwilling to give in. But he is not on the ground, and there is no way to use the inexhaustible white silk thread. Because of the reason why he was swallowed by Roya's slash just now. Most of the stern of the ship he was traveling on, the Flamingo, was gone. If you really want to continue using those tricks, the ship will definitely be drained first. But so what? He is at the end of his rope and has no other options. Thinking of this, Doflamingo took a deep breath. 16 rounds of sacred bullets God thread. 1,000 swords piercing the heart feather strike thread. Doflamingo used 2 tricks in a row, except for the base of the Flamingo's ship, which was used to continue to float on the sea. Under the influence of the Doflamingo fruit, the entire ship turned into countless threads and became entangled together. He even overexhausted his physical strength and armed force just to resist Roja's attack. In his perception of seeing, hearing and color, his chi machine was completely locked. There is simply no possibility of escaping. All we can do is fight to the death. The white threads are constantly surging. It was impossible for other members of the ship to stand firm. In desperation, they could only hang on Buffalo and wander in the air. They wanted to intervene, but when the whole ship became like this, they couldn't do it at all. It can only be hung on Buffalo. And Buffalo obviously endured a weight that he could not bear. He desperately pulled everyone, just to avoid falling into the sea. Hold on, you can definitely do it. As long as we can defeat the white pigeon, we can retreat. Believe me, young master, you are the chosen one. Doflamingo's subordinates were observing the battle between him and Roya from the sky. In fact, Doflamingo's conqueror's domineering power even broke through under this pressure. However, how can the starlight compete with the bright moon? Under Roja's terrifying slashes, all Doflamingo's threads were shattered into pieces. Then it turned into a bit of cold light and sank directly into Doflamingo's body. This is an ultra-advanced swordsmanship application. Only by reaching the perfect realm of the Supreme Swordsman can one fully master the changes in sword energy. Poof! That was the sound of sword energy breaking Doflamingo's heart. In an instant, Doflamingo felt his body relax. It seems that my body has slowed down a lot, and there is a lot of black haze in front of my eyes. Impossible. I actually died like this. I obviously haven't launched revenge on the Tianlong people yet. Doflamingo felt very unwilling in his heart. He did not expect that General Baiji's strength would improve so quickly during this period of time. There is absolutely no way he can compete with Baigu. Plop! There was another soft sound. Doflamingo lay down directly on the ground. What? How is this possible? The young master actually died like this. Damn it! We must avenge the young master. Above the sky, those people hanging on buffalo looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. But Rohan knew that the Doflamingo in front of him was not completely dead. Because of the special nature of the xianxian fruit, it can slowly repair the wounds of the heart. So as long as Doflamingo is given enough time, he can be resurrected. But can Roha give him this opportunity? Obviously impossible. Doflamingo fell, and the flamingo's ship revealed its true form. Most of the flamingo's hull has been used. They were all chopped into pieces by Roha. Just when Roha was about to fall towards Doflamingo, he went to hit the target. Those people in the sky suddenly jumped down from the sky. Falling towards the ship, they have begun to show their abilities. Is it just useful? Luoya raised his head slightly, just with a look of disdain. Those who wanted to attack Roha immediately stopped. They discovered that under Roha's gaze, they simply can't take a step forward. Because of Roha's slash just now. Let the dark clouds in the sky and the sea not heal for a long time. Roha stood and looked coldly at the Don Quixote family in front of him. Facing Roha, the Don Quixote family did not dare to take even one step towards Roha. Garp looked at the scene in front of him and swallowed subconsciously. That guy from Baigu has actually become stronger again. Shouldn't he be called a monster? This terrifying promotion speed is really shocking and frightening. If he betrays Marine. Garp suddenly took a breath. He couldn't imagine it anymore. If this is really the case, then the castle in the air built on Roha's strength will completely collapse, and the sea will become even darker. At that time, an unprecedented evil and bloody era will officially begin. Maginot, who was next to him, saw his eyes shining brightly after seeing what was happening in front of him. Let me ask, how many women can resist the charm of a hero? Just now, Roha's powerful and majestic figure was so powerfully imprinted in Maginot's heart. It's impossible, you can't beat the white pigeon at all. White pigeon is really too strong. At all. I don't dare to take a step at all. Those guys in Don Quixote didn't dare to take a step at all, so they just knelt on the ground. At this time, Garp also came to the flamingo's ship. What are you going to do with them? After hearing Garp's words, Roha waved his hand and directly transformed into a phantom rope. Then tie them up directly. Take it back to the ship, put it on the sea tower stone, and put it directly into the underwater prison. Garp nodded, agreeing with Roha's idea. After Garp pushed these members back to the dog-headed warship, Roha looked at Doflamingo again and said to Doflamingo, "You were born at the wrong time. Your life will end here." As Roha's words fell, a large amount of armed domineering energy immediately wrapped around the Buddhayuhuan in Roha's hand. The armed color is domineering to the extreme. The blade was actually dyed black. The blade, as black as ink, scratched Doflamingo's head. Then Roha returned to the dog-headed warship and said to Garp, "Bring back the heavenly gold." Garp nodded. After settling everything, Roha came to the place where they were detained. The place where the members of the Don Quixote family are imprisoned is the lowest level of the dog-headed warship. It was dark and damp there, and it was no place for people to stay. Roha used the power of the fantasy fruit and walked in so openly without anyone noticing. The moment Roha walked in, some of the more radical members immediately roared at Roha. "Are you here to laugh at us? White pigeon Roha!" Diamantai roared loudly at Roya. At this time, Torbol also said to Roha, "White pigeon, the young master is the king of darkness. If you kill the king, someone else will take over. The sea will be even more chaotic." Hearing Torbol's words, the corners of Roha's mouth rose slightly. You don't need to worry about this. I know more about the changes in the situation on the sea than you losers. Roy killed Doflamingo, wasn't it just to pave the way for what's to come? Paving the way for Nami, he plans to push Nami to become the underground king of this world. Continuously accumulate money at the same time. If his goal at the beginning was to sign in with the system and live a free life. After experiencing the cruelty of the world, the real wish at this time is world peace. However, so far, he has not been able to know what Uranus is. So in order to be able to fulfill my long-cherished wish 100%, Luo Ye is willing to organize the world until the opportunity comes. I am using all my strength to establish my own dynasty and make the world peaceful from now on. Therefore, before that, he needs to continue to use his own strength. This is why Roja is standing here now. That is because he cherishes talents and wants to recruit these people into his team. The aura on his body slowly dissipated. Under the huge pressure, no one in the prison at the bottom of the cabin finally spoke. I only give you one chance. Who of you is willing to surrender to me? As Roja's words fell, he also slowly put away his momentum. Give these people a chance to speak out. After hearing Roya's words, Torbol was the first to express his stance. I will never surrender to Marine. Regarding Torbol's words, Roja just said lightly. It's not Marine, it's surrender to me. When hearing Roja's words, everyone in the Don Quixote family was very shocked. Because they didn't expect that Roja would actually say such words. However, before they could express their thoughts, Monet, who happened to be on the right side of Roja, raised his hand and said to Roja, Master Bai Ge, I am willing to surrender to you. As Monet's words fell, the mentality of other people in the prison suddenly exploded. Monet, are you planning to betray the young master? Monet is a user with Logia Snow Fruit ability. At this time, she still has normal arms and has not been transformed into a birdman by Luo. So after seeing Monet surrender, Rohan nodded and said coldly, There's more. Also, there is me, and I am willing to surrender. The speaker is Sugar. She is a user with the Paramecia childlike fruit ability, which can control people by turning them into toys. From a certain perspective, it is also a very buggy fruit. There are already 2 people willing to surrender. This made many members of the Don Quixote family feel a little panicked. At this time, Roja came to Baby 5 and said to Baby 5, I need your ability, will you join me? Roja knew that the girl in front of him could not refuse others. Desire to be needed, and cannot refuse others as long as they are needed. Whether it is borrowing money, proposing, or forced sales, they will accept it thinking that they are needed. Therefore, they are often deceived, and they owe a debt of up to 98 million berry. As many as 50 newspapers. She was even proposed to by many scumbag men because of this, so her fiancé also became the target of Doflamingo's purge. Overall, she is a young girl who was well protected by her family. After Baby 5 heard Roja's words, she curled up and immediately nodded in agreement. In response, Roja said to Monet, From the day you are free, you will stay next to Baby 5 and eliminate anyone who wants to ask her. Yes, master,